Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where passion meets possibility. Here's your host, Meredith Calloway.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast for another episode. On today's episode, I'm really excited to be sharing with you a guest who is a top producer in our Top Producers Club. She's been a top producer for several years now. She is a solo entrepreneur, and she is a mentor in our Travel Business University program. So without further ado, welcome Heather Parker of Bliss Travel Experiences to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast.
Hi, Meredith. It's great to be here. Thank you.
It is great to have you. So for those of you listening for the first time, the whole point of this podcast is to put a spotlight and give a platform to conversations where we can talk real about the travel business, about travel entrepreneurship, and go deep, really unpack things and understand all of the highs and the lows and the in-betweens that you're going to experience on the travel entrepreneurial journey. So Heather, let's get us started by asking you, I know that you weren't always a travel advisor. So tell us about your life before you became a travel advisor.
I worked in banking for about 20 years. So I was in the financial sector. I was making loans to companies. It's called commercial lending. It got pretty boring after 20 years, I'll have to admit. I loved the people that I worked with, and I loved working on a team. And I thought that it would be really hard to go into an entrepreneurial journey and start my own business. I was like, well, wait a minute. I love going into the office. This is in 2014, so way before pandemic and everybody got used to working from home. But I loved working with other people, and I wanted to find something in travel where I could feel like I was part of a team, even though I was a solopreneur. And so I've found that I'm in year 11 now, and I often have people from my old world who they became clients and still are friends, who say, "Wow, aren't you really happy you did that?" And I say, "Yes, I am."
So we share that in common. I was also in banking and finance, not the same role, but similar background. And I remember that leap of faith and just saying, quitting my job and starting as a travel advisor. Was it that sudden for you? Did you start selling travel before you quit your job and get the business worked up so that you felt comfortable? Because I feel like life situation wise, were you a single mom at the time when you did this?
I was.
You had that to consider too.
Yeah, that was a great question. So I was thinking about leaving my job for about a year before I actually left. So I kind of went on a quest to figure out what's the next career. I was turning 40, and I figured I don't want to do this for the next 20, 25 years, but I don't know what it is that I wanted to do. So I looked at a number of different things. And yes, I was a single mom at the time. My kids were, we'll back up 10 years, so like 15 and 12 or something. And so I needed to bring in that income. That was a big piece of it for me that I think is different from a lot of other travel advisors, where it's okay if it takes quite a while to kind of build up that income. So I saved that I knew that I didn't have to bring in any income for the first year. So in the planning to leave the bank, I was building that kind of nest egg for that first year. I knew that in travel, you don't get really paid the commissions until your clients travel. So it's kind of a snowball effect. And that first 6 to 12 months is a little difficult. But I think that I'm very different than most of the people who kind of started at the same time with me, and in my kind of cohort, so to speak, of people who started with me, and that they weren't as focused on the income piece as I was. I knew that if within 12 months or so, I didn't see a path to making X in annual income, that I couldn't keep doing this, because I needed to, pay the mortgage and pay this college and everything else, right? I wasn't the second income in my household. So I think that made me different than a lot of other people who were in my same position.
It is less common, but that's one of the things that I love about your story and your specific situation, is because I think there is often this default assumption that if you want to take this path, um, it's going to be really hard to do it if you are the sole income provider in your household. But you did it. And sometimes in a weird, when I was coaching people years and years ago with gift, I remember thinking that sometimes that actually was an advantage, because it almost forces you to not put up with average results.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I'd agree with that. I think it was an advantage to me. And I think that my experience, I mean, I had been working for 20 years in sales, really, right? So it was
yeah,
relationship sales, which was
yeah,
very easy to migrate that over to travel. Just
transferable.
relationship sales, right? So I knew that I was good at building rapport, that I had a lot of people who wanted to see me succeed and would kind of, give me a chance. And I had kind of a whole financial plan drawn out for myself, which is kind of funny for people who aren't into finances. But I I told host agencies when I was talking to them, like, I need to be kind of on a run rate to be selling X per month by 9 to 12 months from now. And a couple of those people were very skeptical, hesitant, whatever the
Yeah,
word is. They didn't
yeah,
really believe in
doubtful.
me. Yeah, very, yeah, shared their doubts, like, well, that would be kind of a, you know far above average. And
Right.
I knew, Meredith, that I was far above average, and that, hey, if this wasn't the right thing for me, I'd try something else, or go back to what I did before, which I knew I was good at, or something. So I knew it wasn't the end of the world if I failed, but I kept
Yeah,
seeing all of those quotes and memes of, like, take a step out of your comfort zone. That's where the good stuff
yeah,
is, and all those things. And I
yeah,
just took that leap,
yeah. It's so funny. I've often thought about changing the name of this podcast to Far From Average, because that's what I feel like at the end of the day, as a host agency, as an executive at a host agency, Gifted Travel Network, are what we want is to support the advisor who wants to be far from average.
Mhm.
In fact, Host Agency Reviews puts out a report every single year, the Host Advisor Report, and the average commission earned in 2023, I want to say, was $43,000, something around there. And I compared that to the average commission earned of everyone in our top producers club. And the average commission earned was 5.1 times that. And so, it really is, look, there's nothing wrong with average. But quite honestly, if you are looking at average income earned at $43,000, that sounds like a pretty good living. But what it's not factoring in is your business expenses. That's total revenue, not net
Mhm.
revenue, not net income. And so by the time you factor in your expenses, you're looking somewhere between zero and $20,000 a year. And I don't know anybody that can really live on that. I love that you represent, it is possible
Mhm.
to be the sole provider and step into this career and take this journey, this entrepreneurial journey, after having a successful sales career, um, if you just are smart about it. And you
Yeah.
clearly were smart about it.
Well, and I think it's making sure that you partner with people and entities that are going to get you where you need to go as well. And I joined GTN in 2021. I was with another host agency before, but I think that it's all about being around people and around a consortia like Virtuoso that kind of gets you in the mindset of, here's who I want to sell to. One of the things that I was really attractive to me about GTN, there were many things, but one of the things was that there was a focus on figuring out what your top line expenses are, what your top line revenue is, and what are your expenses. So as a business owner, trying to project those things. And I hadn't seen that before in the industry. And I think that that's really, really key for all of us. Even if your goal is to, you know, do a lot of travel and maybe pay for your own travel, so your overall sales numbers aren't really, you know, that huge. You know, you still need to be able to be a business owner, and to be a business owner who's responsible, you need to know kind of, all right, well, what are my expenses and what can I expect next year, and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So the focus on that was super great for me and was a big attractor to GTN.
When you decide to become a travel advisor, almost 90% of the time, you're going to also, maybe without realizing it, maybe with realizing it, you're becoming an entrepreneur, right? And that's a whole nother journey. So how did you adjust to being an employee and then being an entrepreneur? How was that for you?
Really hard. It was really hard, that mindset, even though I had saved so that I knew I wasn't going to run out of money in the first year. I've actually heard retirees say the same thing, that to shift from putting money in the bank to taking money out of the bank, it's really, to see the balance go down is really, really hard. That was very hard for me. I also really liked a team environment. So until I started really I went to a conference for the consortia I was with within about a month or two after starting. That was huge. So I would say going to events, in-person events in the industry soon after you get started. And I know that in the Travel MBA program with GTN, they do that jumpstart kind of like in-person event. That's so key, because you want to start building your kind of group of people who you can start to get to know. And some of those people are going to do things in the same mindset that you do, which is great. And then others are going to do it completely differently, which is also great, because I learned so much from the people around me. But yeah, that first year, going back to your question, it was the transition was difficult, but it was made easier by really building relationships in my new profession. You know, getting to know some of my quote unquote colleagues. Even though I wasn't an employee, I had a network of people, you know, who were similar to me, and became really good friends with some of them. And then you start sharing best practices, and you have people to talk to and go to on like, okay, now I just got this request for Bhutan or wherever in the world that you've never been and never gotten a request for. Where do I get started? How do I do this? You know, you need those people to, to help navigate all the new things. And in the beginning, the other thing that was really hard in the beginning was that everything took so long. So I went from being the person who knew all the answers in my old world to the person who had none of the answers in travel, right? So every time I did something, it was brand new. And it took probably 4 or 5 times the amount of time to do it than it would take me to do. And that's hard. It's an adjustment of being the new person who doesn't have all the answers to the questions. And so you have to just be open to that and kind of welcome it in, you know.
Open to it, be okay with it, but also surround yourself with people where you can get a very quick answer. I believe that there actually is a formula for being far from average. And it's not that for a travel advisor, it's really pretty simple. And actually, I think this is true for any entrepreneurial journey, endeavor. Is the formula is you have to really get clear on your numbers and how you're going to monetize it. Number 2 is you want to build an effective sales funnel or a client attraction machine. And then number 3 is you really need to learn how to scale for growth. And those are the 3 things that we are teaching in the Travel MBA program, so that people do achieve far from average results. Ultimately, like, their final destination is not average. Their final destination is 5 to 10 times the average. But I think when one, and you just pointed this out so well, when one underestimates the importance of cultivating the right mindset, specifically a success mindset, as well as having the right support system. You can have the access to the formula, you can know the formula by heart, you can take all the action you want in the world, but you're still going to end up average if you underestimate the importance of mindset and not doing it alone. Let's start with the first part of that formula, which is
Sure.
just knowing how to monetize it and getting clear. And you're a numbers person, clearly, obviously. You started doing your numbers before you even became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I
Um,
saw a lot of companies, try and project their next year or their next 3 years or whatever and be way, way off. So being
yeah,
off didn't really scare me. It was like
it
I was
didn't freak you
building
out.
in
Yeah.
okay, this is going to be some variability. I have no idea what I'm
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
into.
But it's true, like just sitting down and doing that is incredibly powerful. Did you always sell luxury, I guess is the question. And when did you decide to lean more and more into luxury? Because I feel like leaning into luxury is one of the simplest, cleanest ways
Mhm.
to truly monetize selling travel and getting to the place where you're generating far from average financial results.
The answer is no, I didn't always sell luxury travel. I think when I first started, I pretty much felt like my clients were guinea pigs in a way because I was doing all the work on the back end to make sure that they came out with the result that they wanted. But it was my first times doing all of these things. So I didn't charge fees at first. Someone could have asked me to do, I remember someone asked me, they were going to do a boat trip off the coast of like San Diego. And they said, I want to do a live aboard, sailing trip. And I was like, live aboard? What is that? Like, but I was like, sure, I can help you with that. Oh, I was like, I can research it. I feel so terribly for people who were before the internet trying to figure out what these things are. But, so I was willing to pretty much take on anything because I felt like anything I took on was learning. I also did a lot more, I think things that I won't consider them mistakes now, but I did a lot of things that I wouldn't do now. Like if I can't, my mindset now is, and I do mostly sell, luxury travel, 4-star and up for sure. I would have booked a 3-star hotel for people because that was what fit for their, itinerary through Europe. But I didn't have any confidence in that property. I had never been to or have a relationship with anybody at that property. So now I feel like those kinds of things are a little bit risky. People come to me feeling like I'm their backup should anything go wrong. So now I would say, you know what, if you want to book that property, that's totally fine. If that works for you, no problem. But I think that's something you should be doing more on a DIY type of trip. So I've definitely changed mindset over the
Love
course of
that.
time. And every year, I mean, I go through and see, how many trips am I doing? What's the average revenue for a trip? Where are people going? And I try and focus more on my marketing to clients that are going to fit more of my expertise and where I really think that I can add value so that it's a win-win for the clients and a win, for me as well.
One thing that I love about just watching you and, continue on your journey is that I think you at one point were in a place of overwhelm and maybe even close to burnout. And now you're on the other side of that and you've really prioritized work-life balance.
I have.
I think I remember you saying last year that you were, how many vacations did you take? I mean, no, I mean, it's just amazing how you've gone from being in that typical hamster wheel, just trying to keep up with everything and just being really intentional. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did, how you got there? What was
Yeah,
it like before when you were in
sure.
overwhelm?
It was, I think we're all going to go through burnout at different stages. If you're in an
Mhm.
industry, for a long time, things are going to happen like that. But I was very resistant. And I think it's part of, when you have maybe something that's a benefit to you and you lean too hard into it and it actually becomes maybe your Achilles heel. I think focusing so much on the, income statement side of things, I was very hesitant to hire an assistant. I had an assistant services company that was working with me doing backup work, but I was hesitant to hire someone on my team to really take over and know my clients and interact a little bit with our suppliers and some of our clients. And so I took that leap about 18 months ago. And now I have a real full-time assistant who's part of my team. That obviously really impacts my ability to not worry so much when I travel, not be as plugged in when I'm traveling and on vacation. And then the other thing, that really has changed in my mindset was I have pretty strict boundaries about, and I have had for a while, about clients, where I need to be able to shut off during my own personal time. And so I really communicate via email almost solely. If someone texts me, I'll say, I'm going to forward this to my email so I don't forget it, because it will get lost in my texts or it will get lost in my Facebook messages and that kind of thing. So what that does, those kinds of boundaries where when I'm working, and when I'm, eating dinner with a friend or spending time with my daughter, I'm not working. That helps me, one, to keep things organized, which with all the details in travel, you really need to do. But also, I think it's really helped me in that work-life balance. I tried over the summer to do kind of a step back where, the travel planning piece of the year that's really big, the wave season, is January through April-ish. And then by May or so of last year, I was so just tired. And I said, I called it the summer of fun. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, I was like, I'm going to try not to work more than 35 hours a week on average. And I
love
did.
it.
I took like 3 vacations during the summer last year. I took real time off where I tried to unplug from work. And I ended up, everything was fine and smooth on the work side of things. So I still sold a lot. It wasn't like my business quivered because I took that time for myself. And my assistant, I will give a big thumbs up to May Rose for having a big piece in that and helping to keep things moving. But, I think maybe I just got more focused, and that I like to be efficient. I like to have good processes, and I have, so I've continued to refine those processes, and I don't know really how it worked, but it worked.
So one of the most common objections that come up when, as a business coach, I recommend someone hires an assistant. There's 2 incredibly common objections. Number one is, I'm not ready to hire. I don't have the cash flow. I want to wait until I grow the business a little bit more, or whatever it is. They're just basically feeling that objection or that anxiety over having that cash flow responsibility. And the second objection is really about not wanting to manage someone or take the time to train.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone objecting to hiring right now, but being in that position where it's definitely time? Because you are a mentor too. So you may even have had these conversations.
I have. And I've learned kind of what the mindset changes for me that helped things. I think one of the things that I think Whitney Schindler on the Masters in Travel podcast had talked about once was trying to offset her employees, that cost of employees, with fee income versus with commission income.
I love it.
And I love that too, because if you can think about it as in terms of like, how much is it going to cost me to hire that assistant or team member or whatever for whatever hours per week? And then say, how am I going to offset that? Like, is it going to be increased sales and commissions from travel? Is it going to be monthly fees? And if you can offset that cost or more than offset that cost with your monthly fee income, that kind of shifted something for me. And that it was like, okay, that's something that, I feel like I have a really good sense about from history. And I feel like I have a good sense of control over that. And so that helped a lot in terms of thinking about how to offset that a little differently. And then in the training, I'm a big user of an app called Komodo, and Loom is similar in that you basically make videos of yourself doing things on the computer. It shows your computer screen and you're talking at the same time. And so I built a huge library of training for my assistant. So every time that I was doing something, I would just have myself do it and record myself doing it and talking through it. And did it take extra time to do? Yes, but guess what? My assistant helped me put the workflow together to have all of those videos logged. And now if we add somebody else to the team, we have all of it right there. So I think that was incredibly helpful. If you're going to do it yourself, just tape yourself doing it. If you're doing it already without an assistant, start videotaping your, with the video. And then you've got a library. Before you know it, you've got a library of videos that teach someone exactly how you do those things. Because the thing is, it's not enough to have someone look at your documents, software planning, or look at your CRM and just give them here's how to use this system. Sure, they can start with that, but it's about how you utilize those systems. And so how I like my business to run. And now, I even do little videos where, I just want to explain something better since we're not in the same city. And I do the little Loom videos. I do 2 and 3 minute Loom videos all the time. And I also do videos for my clients and they love them.
I was going to say,
yes,
it's a fantastic sales tool.
It's great because then I can talk through the proposal and show them, okay, here's what we're thinking day to day. And then on flights, let me show you what I was thinking on this, and on activities, let me show. So they're not just seeing an email where it's like, oh God, where do I start? I always tell people too, Meredith, because I can talk for a while. So I say, you can speed me up to 2x.
But you talk pretty fast. So I don't know, that might be like,
so like, it won't make me feel bad. You can speed me up, but here's a walkthrough of your proposal. It's usually 5-6 minutes anyway.
So there was about like 5 golden tips in that response alone. Just so, and now everyone who listening can see why Heather is a fantastic mentor in our program.
Well, that's the thing. I really don't like managing people much. And so I do love mentoring. So I never wanted to build a big team, in this business. But, with our little small team, I do like being able to mentor people and share what I've learned. Like I said, everybody runs their business in a different way. That's one of the beauties of this industry, is that we are an entrepreneurial industry. So you can run your business however the heck you want to. You can work with whichever clients you want to. That's a huge plus. When I was at the bank, if there was a client that really was horrible to work with, it was our client. And just smile, grin, and bear it, as they say. And now, it's like I work mainly based on repeat clients and referrals, but it's wonderful because so many of my clients, they're a joy to work with. And if somebody's not a good fit for whatever reason, it's like, well, I don't think that might be the best fit for, this trip that you're doing, or the way that you want to do this trip, but maybe here, talk to somebody else or whatever. But, you get to kind of plot that out for yourself, which I really, really like, especially at this stage. The flexibility to be able to do that is huge.
You've really just stepped into this super, you have this great confidence in that it all work out, and that's a mindset, and that's a mindset muscle that you have to practice. And you've done an amazing job of just being like, I can say no to business because there's other business that will come if I say no. I like the saying of, when you let go of something of a lower nature, you make room to receive something of a higher nature. And I think there's a lot of people are so afraid to say no to business that is not a good fit, because they think, well, if I say no to this, then there's so many, repercussions that are all fear-based.
Right. And I agree with you, Meredith. I believe that. And I actually have seen that happen for me in this business so many times, where you kind of let go of this and trust that it's going to come. Same thing with last summer, where I said, I'm going to pull back on my hours, but I'm going to trust that the business is going to be fine. And the business still came, and I kind of, just kept working on it as I did. I think, thank you so much. That compliment is so nice, for you to say. I want to say that I too am fearful, just like everybody else, and I think I'm a really pragmatic person, kind of a logically driven person. And that kind of can get in my way sometimes, I think, um, often that kind of makes me stop and be really pragmatic before maybe taking the leap to do something. I think that GTN and your mindset calls really have helped me to let go of that
Yeah.
a little bit and just trust. I mean, at the end of the day, none of us know what the future holds, but I do believe in listening to people who have been successful. And I think most of, I was saying, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And so, when I listen to people who I admire in podcasts, they're very successful people, and they're all giving that same message of kind of trusting and opening up that space for, what you want to come, and kind of putting into place all of the back end, all that actions, the processes and the marketing and the sales funnel and all those things, and then trusting that it's gonna come to fruition. I found that really, really does work. So don't get the impression, anyone who's listening, that I'm like, this fearless, I will say, I probably felt like I had a little bit of like, trauma from the pandemic after everything canceled.
Yeah.
And I held
Yeah.
on to that for longer than I think most advisors, through kind of our recovery in the, 2021, we had different outbreaks and whatever, cancel and rebook and cancel and rebook.
Yeah.
And I held
Yeah.
on to that for a long time. I was a little stressed to book because I didn't want to cancel
Yeah.
and rebook. So I think that you
Yeah.
do have to kind of acknowledge that and then work on that within yourself to get in that different mindset of, when negative things happen, they're not always going to be there, and
Yeah.
they're teaching you something, and then kind of move on from that.
Yeah. I love I don't know where this comes from, but the definition of courage is not having no fear. Courage is acknowledging the fear and taking action anyway, in
I love
spite of
that
the
too.
fear. And I think I would say that you really cultivated quite a bit of courage, because I mean, not only are you an entrepreneur, but like I said, when you started the business, you had two teenagers at home, you were a single mom. That there are so few people that would have had the courage to take that action, in spite of that fear of, how am I going to support this? How am I going to provide? How am I going to, what if I fail?
Yeah, yeah. It was helpful. Honestly, it was helpful that I had been doing something for like 20 years. I knew
Yeah.
worst case scenario, I can find a
I
job.
can always go back.
I
Yeah.
can go back, I can find a job. But I did get that from a lot of my colleagues. Oh my gosh, that's so brave. Or like, what the heck? And my first newsletter that I sent out once I started the business was like, it was when Dave Letterman, oh my gosh, I'm dating myself, but Dave Letterman was still on the air probably. And it was the top 10 reasons that I left banking. And I got a huge open rate from that, because it was like, what did she do? Is she crazy? So, it did feel a little crazy to be doing that.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was a soft place to fall, and I could always get a job if I needed to, a different, go back to the old. But I really did take that, I'm very glad I took that leap. I knew if I did it, I had to do it then, because I was right around 40, and I felt like that for myself. If I waited another 10 years, I didn't think that I would have the courage to do it at 50. And I do hear that from friends of mine,
Yeah.
feel like once they're in their 50s, they feel like it's too late. Well, number one,
Yeah.
it's not, it's never too late. And it's never too, I forget who said this, but somebody said, the if you've spent like 10 years doing the wrong thing, the worst thing you can do is spend 10 years in one day doing the wrong thing. Like, go ahead and make the change as soon as you realize, like, if you're in a bad
Yeah.
relationship or whatever it is, like, once you figure that out, change it. But I definitely, I'm glad that I did it when I did, because I've gotten this whole second life of like, hopefully,
Yeah.
25, 30 years, hopefully, doing travel. and working in this industry. And it is very fulfilling, both personally for me, and for my clients. I remember saying when I left banking that I really wanted to do something that would make a difference to people, because what I was doing before, we were doing a lot of contract negotiations, arguing about interest rates and little things that wasn't really making a difference at the end of the day for anybody. And I think a lot of people were skeptical of that. Like, you think you're going to make a difference for people? But, you know, we have a supplier who's like, talks about, you know, changing people's lives. And I think that we really do. When you travel with your family, friends, you know, or on your own, you get experiences that really make a difference in your life. So I feel like I really made a great career choice in that I'm in an industry where what we do really has an impact on people. And it's a great fit for me because both personally and professionally, there's a lot of overlap in what I love. So.
Yeah, I think you spent the first 20 years or the past 20 years, the 20 years in banking that you spent, you were really, your career, you were following your head. And when you decided to take the leap and become a travel advisor and take the travel entrepreneurial journey, you were following your heart.
Right.
And it is very scary making that transition because your head is going to fight it.
Absolutely. And my hat's off to young people who make that transition earlier than I did, because I don't think I would have had the courage to do it if I were earlier in my career. I mean, by the time I left my first career, I had, you know, built a nice retirement fund. I had, you know, I was able to save for that first year of travel. I felt like I had a really great network of people who might want to buy what I was trying to sell.
Right.
So those things made it easier, you know? But
and that's another reason why this journey is, you know, it appeals to people who are a little more mature, have, you know, come from a career where they've actually found success, and it turns into a great way to transition and have a whole new chapter, a whole new second half of their life.
back when I started, there weren't the same kinds of programs in place that there are now. So like the robust programs that like GTN offers for new people to travel in that Travel Business University, it's so great to invest in yourself and be able to say, I'm going to learn everything I need to learn about this industry and figure out how to set up my business and do it right. Get the mentorship I need, you know, from people who know how to do this, and then go off on the right. I mean, I wish I had a education like that in travel when I first started. I did a course, but it was more like a weekly webinar type of course. But I really wish that I had that kind of launching pad, because I definitely see the benefits. And I see the benefits of hooking up with the right host agency. You know, if you want to be selling luxury travel, if you want to be up-leveling your business, so to speak, I mean, I think it's very easy to get stuck at, you know, let's say you make it to $1 million in travel, and that feels like a huge milestone, which it is for you. I think it's very easy to get stuck there. When just a few tweaks and you could be at 1.5 million or 2 million or 2.5 million. You know, you just don't know what the possibilities are until you really do that investment in yourself.
I love that you shared that, because one of the reasons why we created the Top Producers Club was because we feel like, yes, we have the Travel MBA program, and we're very proud of that. We think it is incredibly effective at guiding new to the industry people on a path that their final destination is being in the Top Producers Club, you know, being far from average. But we wanted to support travel advisors and travel entrepreneurs at all points in their journey, including when they get to that final destination. They still need support, you know. You don't want to do it alone. And really the support you need when you're at 1 million or more and wanting to grow to 1.5 or wanting to grow to 2 or wanting even to grow to 10, whatever your aspirations are, the support that you need is to collaborate with other people who are at that stage of the business. And so you can, like what you just said, maybe you're someone who just arrived at 1 million in sales and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I guess I must be done now. And then Heather comes along who's like, oh no, it's just a few tweaks. So you can get to 2 million in a few years, no problem.
It's nice because you see things that you don't even envision for yourself. You see other people within like top producers club meetings, TPC stuff that we've done with masterminding and brainstorming, sharing best practices. I'm so inspired by other people, and maybe what they're doing isn't necessarily what I envision for my business, and that's fine. But sometimes you see someone say something and it's like, okay, maybe I should be thinking about that. Or you see someone with a much better process of dealing with something within your business, and you're like, I need to really focus and hone in on changing my processes because that would make me so much more efficient, or whatever it is. But those masterminding type sessions that we do and getting best practices from each other is something GTN does so well. And I've loved it since my very first meeting when we went to, I think it was when we went to Oceanside together, when we did the TPC meeting that year.
Southern California. SoCal. So we define entrepreneurial success as there's three, we believe everybody should be have their own definition of success. But we believe that there are three components to entrepreneurial success that are common to everybody. And the three components are freedom, basically the freedom that and maybe freedom's not always the right word. Some people might resonate better with flexibility, because you're not necessarily completely free as a business owner. You still have responsibilities, but you have tremendous flexibility in your schedule, in vacation time, in hiring people and firing people. Like, you've got all this flexibility. The second is fulfillment. Like you were just saying, it is when you are following your heart, it is so fulfilling I was like you, when I was in finance, I was so bored by my subject material. And I used to have to read bond prospectuses, and talk about repo rates on mobile homes.
Oh, wow.
So really, really fun stuff. But it is so fulfilling when you're able to just dive into your passion and then make a positive difference on somebody else's life because you're actually sharing your passion and your wisdom with someone. So that's the fulfillment side. And then the third is financial satisfaction. And I think you might agree. I know that when I was in the corporate world, in my banking career, I had tremendous financial satisfaction, and I didn't have freedom and I didn't have fulfillment. And then when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, it flip-flopped completely. I had freedom, I had fulfillment, but I had no financial satisfaction because I ran my business. I was a hobbyist. And that was like the dirty little secret that I think a lot of travel advisors at the time were not even willing to share with other people. They were ashamed of it, is that, I'm selling travel, but I'm not making any money. And so it's really important to us at GTN that you get all three, that you have the freedom, you have the fulfillment, and you have financial satisfaction. And that can be different. Like, if you're not the sole provider, you don't necessarily always have to bring in as much income. So what is financially satisfying to you? But we want you to make money. We don't want you to lose money. We don't want you to be breaking even either. And if that's okay with you, it's not really a business. It's just that it's a hobby, right? So how would you rate your freedom, financial satisfaction, and fulfillment
Oh,
today?
I think that this industry brings me all of those, 10 out of 10. Now, is it absolutely perfect every day? No.
Yeah.
And right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially when you're in busy season, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like, I'm working so hard to keep up with that hamster wheel of like new requests. And then I have to reset and say, all of these new requests are huge blessings,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
very fortunate that I get to kind of pick and choose sometimes as to which ones are the right fit. So yes, there are always, and like we were talking about, I got burned out last year after a really crazy busy season. And in May of last year, I was ready for a bit of a break. All that said, I had the freedom and the flexibility to make different choices for myself, to kind
Yeah.
of give myself the time away. I can't imagine. I was one of those people. I think I had 4 weeks vacation. I was very lucky by the time I had left banking, but I took every single day of that vacation. I have friends in the DC area who carry over vacation every year. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I was never one of
Yeah.
those people. I always wanted to be enjoying my time away and traveling. But I mean, now, I mean, I, I have so many great opportunities for travel. I can hardly keep track of them. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredibly wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Super awesome conversation. Like I said, I hope everyone listening now understands why Heather makes such a great guest, because you just have so much wisdom to share, and that's why you make a great mentor too. But my favorite question to close with is, can you tell us about one of your favorite pinch me, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get to do this moments in
Oh,
travel, in selling
um,
travel, or being a travel advisor?
yeah. Personally, for me, I was able to take my daughters and we went with a friend to for what my youngest high school graduation. We went to Africa for the first time and did a South
Oh
Africa
my gosh.
trip. That was life-changing for me. I didn't think that I was really into animals and would love it as much as I did, but it was, I mean, and my girls still talk about it. It's 4 years ago. They're still talking about it. So that's
Yeah.
like amazing, right? And then
Yeah.
on the client side, it's the relationships I've built with my clients. Like I have a client who's been with me since maybe the first 6 months that I was in business. I've done countless trips for she and her family. And last year, her husband took a big sabbatical and they did 10 days in Spain and 3 weeks
Oh
in
my
Italy
God.
and capped it off with 10 days in Greece. I mean, it was like a six
Oh
week
my gosh.
thing. And getting to put that together with someone who
Oh,
loves travel as much as this client of mine does. And she's just so appreciative as well. So she's the kind of
well,
client
and you
I
know
call
her so
home.
well now.
Yeah, and I know her so well, and like sending me pictures throughout the whole thing of look how excited my husband was with the driver at the Ferrari place, in Montana, and
Oh, you
those
did
kinds
that.
of
You did
moments.
The Ferrari like test drive place.
Yes, they did.
Oh,
The test drive was, I think, the maybe one of the best days of his life.
oh
So
my
those kind of
gosh.
things are the pinch me moments when you really have
Yeah.
appreciative clients who are like, "This was amazing for my family." That's the best.
And how, like, so much pride, and that is fulfilling, because you're getting to plan like a 6 week trip. And for someone who's geeks out on planning travel, that is like, yes, yes, please. I'll take 2 of those.
Exactly. It's like, wow, okay, this was really something special. So those are the kinds of
Yeah.
things that are like, I can't believe I get to do this every day.
Yeah.
Right.
So in closing, do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for someone who is considering, still not hasn't left the full-time job yet, but is considering this path? Any words of wisdom or tips?
I think, definitely do your search, do your due diligence to find a host, a program that is really feels like the right fit for you. And you're gonna feel it when it's the right fit. And don't be afraid to invest in yourself. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
just get into a new industry and be chintzy about it. You know, like if this is going to be your career, hopefully for however many years, you know, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. You know, talk to a lot of different people, figure out who feels like the right fit, who's going to give you the right support. And yeah, don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. I mean, you definitely need to run the numbers so that you're comfortable, and a couple months in, you're not freaking out. Like, oh, I didn't realize that I'm booking a trip in January that's going to travel in September and I won't get paid till October. That's something that for me, I was much more calm because I thought about all that. So if you're that kind of person, definitely, you know, I think in life generally, and when I'm with travel with my clients, expectations are key. So figure out all that you need to know so that you have expectations that are realistic for the first 6 months, the first year, because that is so key. If you go in with unrealistic expectations, then yeah, it's easy to be disappointed and it's easy to get down and like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? But like, you can get really realistic expectations if you do your due diligence and talk to people and find out what it's really going to be like. Then it can be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Such good advice. I completely agree. You know, don't cheap out on your foundation. When you're building a new home, you never hear a homeowner say, "Oh yeah, let's go cheap on that foundation part of things."
Yeah, I think I need a sump pump for flooding, but maybe I won't spend that 20 grand. You know, it's
exactly.
Like, uh-oh.
What's the cheapest you got?
Yeah.
Such good advice. And it is so inspiring to hear your story. I hope you're very, very proud of your business, but also the life that you've built for yourself. Because I think it's enviable for sure. It's enviable.
Thank you, Meredith. That means a lot coming from you. I'm really grateful for the relationships that I have with you and everyone at GTN too, because it helps me so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you if anybody is curious about, you know, using your services, how can they get a hold of you?
Best way to reach me is email, because everything kind of starts the process and goes through the process. But I'm on LinkedIn, Heather Parker. My website is blisstravelexperiences.com. And my email information is all in there. Connect with me, however, and then we'll get you into the process. Would love to talk about travel.
Go to Bliss Travel Experiences if you want Heather to book your next luxury experience. All right. Thank you, Heather, so much.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone, for listening today.